Hey guys, tonight we're going to take a long, slow journey back to a magnificent and often misunderstood kingdom in West Africa. We're heading to the heart of the ancient Benin Kingdom, a powerful and artistically rich civilization that flourished for centuries. Our focus isn't on battles or conquests, but on something far more intimate, a deep dive into Benin Kingdom's daily rhythms and royal meals. Imagine yourself not scrolling through social media, but perhaps walking through the grand streets of Benin City, feeling the warm, humid air on your skin, hearing the distant, rhythmic sounds of daily life, and catching the tantalizing sense of cooking from bustling palace kitchens. You probably won't survive the mental image without appreciating the rich, intricate tapestry of a day lived centuries ago. So, before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. And if you're up for it, drop a comment below with where you're listening from and what time it is. Now, dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. You find yourself transported to the heart of Benin City, the majestic capital of the Edo people, perhaps in the 16th century. Long before European colonial interference drastically altered its landscape, the city is a vibrant tableau of red earth walls, thatched roofs, and the impressive, towering structures of the royal palace. The morning air, still cool from the night, carries the scent of damp earth, wood smoke, and the faint, sweet perfume of tropical flowers. As the sun begins its slow ascent, painting the sky in soft hues of orange and pink, the city gradually awakens, its rhythms beginning to stir. A mainstream historical fact is that the Benin Kingdom, particularly during its golden age from the 14th to the 19th centuries, was a highly organized and powerful state in West Africa. Renowned for its sophisticated political system, its formidable military, and its exquisite bronze and ivory artistry. The Abba, the divine king, stood at the absolute center of this universe. His daily life, a carefully orchestrated series of rituals and ceremonies that reflected his sacred status. Now, for a quirky tidbit. The city itself was encircled by immense earthworks, a vast network of walls and moats, some of the largest man-made structures on Earth at the time. These fortifications weren't just for defense. They also defined the sacred space of the kingdom, protecting its inner rhythms. Imagine walking along one of these ancient walls, feeling the weight of centuries of history in the packed earth beneath your feet. A quiet testament to the enduring power of the kingdom. Historians still argue whether the scale and complexity of Benin City's walls were primarily a response to military threats from neighboring states, or if they served a more symbolic purpose demarcating the sacred boundaries of the Abba's divine rule? Was it defensive necessity or spiritual architecture? Regardless, the city itself felt alive, its morning breath exhaling a gentle hum of awakening life. You sense the anticipation, the quiet unfolding of a new day, all centered around the unseen. Yet, profoundly felt presence of the Ova in his grand palace. His morning, you realize, would not be like anyone else's. As the gentle morning light spreads across Benin City, your focus shifts to the very heart of the kingdom's daily rhythm, the Abba's palace. Here, the day didn't simply begin. It unfolded. Through a series of intricate and deeply significant ceremonies, particularly around the Abba's morning. His awakening was not a private affair, but a carefully orchestrated ritual, marking the commencement of the kingdom's day. A mainstream historical fact is that the Abba of Benin was considered a divine ruler, a direct link between the earthly realm and the spirit world. Every aspect of his life, from his rising to his eating, was imbued with spiritual significance and surrounded by strict protocols. His morning routine was no exception, involving elaborate rites performed by various palace functionaries and priests. You wouldn't hear a jarring alarm clock. Instead, the morning might be heralded by the soft, rhythmic drumming from a distant courtyard, or the chanting of praise singers gently coaxing the new day into existence. Now, for a quirky tidbit, one of the most intriguing aspects of the Abba's morning ritual involved a specific sequence of salutations and blessings. High-ranking chiefs and palace officials would approach the Abba's private chambers, offering formalized greetings and prayers before he even physically rose. These were not casual good mornings, but solemn affirmations of his divine authority and the well-being of the kingdom. Imagine being one of those chiefs, standing quietly in the pre-dawn light, waiting for the precise moment to offer your respects, knowing that the prosperity of the entire kingdom hinged on the Abba's sacred power. It sounds like a rather elaborate wake-up call, doesn't it? Historians still argue whether the extreme formality surrounding the Abba's daily life was primarily designed to reinforce his divine status and absolute power, or if it also served a more practical purpose in maintaining order and hierarchy within a complex political system. Was it pure religious reverence or clever statecraft? Regardless, the quiet, measured pace of the Abba's morning set the tone for the entire kingdom. You sense the hushed anticipation, the reverent movements of palace staff, and the profound weight of tradition that governed every aspect of the ruler's day. His morning was not his own. It was a sacred performance for the benefit of his people and the continuity of the realm. As the echoes of the Abba's sacred morning rituals gently fade, your mind turns to the first official sustenance of his day: the palace breakfast rituals. This wasn't a quick bite snatched on the way to work. It was a deeply symbolic and carefully prepared meal, reflecting the Abba's unique position at the nexus of the human and spiritual worlds. A mainstream historical fact is that the Abba's meals were not prepared by just anyone. They were handled by a specialized retinue of palace cooks and servers, often drawn from specific families or guilds, who understood the intricate culinary traditions and taboos associated with royal food. Every ingredient was carefully sourced, every dish meticulously prepared to ensure it was suitable for the divine ruler. You would imagine the rhythmic sounds of chopping vegetables, the subtle sizzle of palm oil in a clay pot, and the gentle grinding of spices, all happening within the secluded, bustling environment of the royal kitchens. Now, for a quirky tidbit, while the Abba's main meal later in the day might be more elaborate, his breakfast was often surprisingly simple, focusing on staple foods but prepared with utmost care and presented with significant ceremony. It might include a finely pounded yam dish, perhaps with a very light, specially prepared soup or sauce. The true essence of the meal was less about exotic ingredients and more about its ritual purity and the solemnity of its presentation. Imagine an elaborate procession of servants, each carrying a small, pristine platter, bringing a humble bowl of yam to the Oba, their movements precise and reverent. It sounds like a minimalist meal served with maximum fanfare, doesn't it? Historians still argue whether the simplicity of the Abba's breakfast was a deliberate reflection of his connection to the common people's staple diet, or if it was part of a larger spiritual discipline that emphasized moderation for the divine ruler. Was it a practical choice or a sacred one? Regardless, the quiet reverence surrounding the Abba's first meal underscored his unique status. You would sense the profound respect in the air, the hushed movements of attendants, and the quiet dignity of the meal itself. This breakfast was not merely about nourishment. It was a daily reaffirmation of the Abba's sacred bond with his ancestors and his people, consumed amidst the quiet solemnity of the palace dado. As the delicate ritual of the Abba's breakfast concludes, the wider palace complex, and indeed the city beyond its imposing walls, gradually shakes off the last vestiges of night. This is when courtly life awakens, unfolding into a meticulously structured daily routine for the myriad officials, chiefs, and subjects who served or interacted with the divine king. Their lives, too, were governed by deep-seated customs and rhythms. A mainstream historical fact is that the Abba's palace was not just a residence. It was the administrative, judicial, and spiritual heart of the Benin Kingdom. It housed thousands of people, chiefs, priests, eunuchs, artisans, guards, and servants, each with specific roles and duties. As the sun climbed higher, these various palace societies would begin their work, attending to the day's business. You would hear the distant sounds of discussions in meeting courtyards, the soft shuffle of sandals on polished floors, and the rhythmic beat of drums from ceremonial grounds, all blending into a steady hum of activity. Now, for a quirky tidbit, to maintain order and communication within such a vast and complex palace, a sophisticated system of messengers and heralds was employed. These individuals would move quietly through the palace grounds, delivering messages, summoning officials, and ensuring that the Abba's will was communicated efficiently. Imagine a young messenger, his footsteps barely audible on the packed earth, weaving through courtyards and past intricately carved pillars, carrying a vital message that would set the day's tasks for a guild of bronze casters or a contingent of warriors. It sounds like an ancient, highly disciplined internal postal service, doesn't it? Historians still argue whether the extreme stratification and ritualization of palace life was primarily a means of maintaining strict social control and preventing challenges to the Abba's authority, or if it also fostered a deep sense of collective identity and purpose within the kingdom. Was it an efficient bureaucracy or a spiritual theater? Regardless, the intricate dance of courtly life was a constant, gentle hum of activity, a subtle yet powerful reinforcement of the kingdom's order. You would sense the quiet dignity in the movements of the palace officials, the precise execution of their duties, and the pervasive respect for authority that permeated every interaction. The palace, you realize, was a living, breathing testament to the structured grace of the Benin Kingdom, its rhythms flowing with quiet, ancient purpose. As the structured rhythms of palace life begin to unfold, your senses are drawn beyond the palace walls to the pulsating heart of the city, the marketplace. Here, in the vibrant symphony of market sounds and scents, you experience the daily pulse of Benin City, a sensory feast that speaks of community, commerce, and the rich bounty of the land. A mainstream historical fact is that markets were absolutely central to daily life in the Benin Kingdom, serving as economic hubs where goods from across the kingdom and beyond were traded. These were not just places of commerce, but also vital social spaces where news was exchanged and community bonds were strengthened. You would hear the lively chatter of vendors calling out their wares, the rhythmic clink of cowrie shells, common form of currency being counted, and the soft rustle of baskets as produce was exchanged. Now for a quirky tidbit. The markets were typically organized with specific sections for different goods, from foodstuffs like yams, plantains, and palm oil, to craft goods such as textiles, pottery, and the renowned bronze castings. Imagine wandering through the market. The vibrant colors of fresh fruits and vegetables creating a visual tapestry, while the earthy scent of kola nuts mingled with the sharp aroma of dried fish and the sweet perfume of distant spices. It's a complete immersion for your senses, isn't it? Historians still argue whether the apparent prosperity of Benin's markets was primarily due to internal agricultural surplus and skilled craftsmanship, or if it was significantly boosted by long-distance trade networks, including those with European powers. Was it local ingenuity or global connection? Regardless, the market was a place of constant, gentle activity. You would feel the warm sun on your skin, the soft dust beneath your feet, and the comforting hum of thousands of daily transactions. The market, with its blend of sights, sounds, and scents, was a vibrant, living testament to the daily rhythm of Benin City, a place where the lifeblood of the kingdom flowed with a quiet, persistent energy. It was certainly more engaging than online shopping. While the Abba's palace hummed with ritual and the market pulsed with commerce, the vast majority of Benin Kingdom's populace lived a life centered on the rhythm of the land and the sustenance it provided. Your mind now turns to the commoner's meals, understanding the staple foods and cooking methods that nourished ordinary people, forming the true culinary backbone of the kingdom. A mainstream historical fact is that the diet of the common people in the Benin Kingdom was largely based on root crops, particularly yam, which was the primary staple. Much like maize was for the Aztecs, yams were cultivated extensively and consumed in various forms, most commonly pounded into a thick, dough-like consistency known as eon. This eon would then be eaten with a variety of rich, flavorful soups or stews. Thud of pestle on mortar as women tirelessly pounded yams, a ubiquitous sound echoing from every compound. Now for a quirky tidbit beyond yams. Other important staples included plantains, cocoyams, and various leafy greens, all grown locally. Protein sources for commoners were more limited than for the Abba, often coming from small livestock like chickens or goats, various fish from rivers and lagoons, and sometimes bushmeat, wild game. But the true magic often lay in the accompanying soups. These were rich concoctions made with palm oil, smoked fish or meat, and a variety of local spices and vegetables, providing both flavor and essential nutrients. Imagine the rich, earthy aroma of a simmering palm oil stew wafting from a cooking hut. Its vibrant red color, a tantalizing contrast to the pale eon. It sounds wonderfully comforting, doesn't it? Historians still argue whether the apparent simplicity of the commoner's diet was a reflection of nutritional adequacy given their agricultural environment, or if it indicated underlying dietary limitations compared to modern, diverse diets. Was it a complete diet, or did it necessitate supplementary foraging? Regardless, the preparation of these meals was a communal affair. You would sense the warmth of cooking fires, the shared laughter over a communal bowl, and the quiet satisfaction of a nourishing meal after a day of labor. The commoners' meals, while basic, were rich in cultural significance and provided the steady energy that fueled the intricate life of the Benin Kingdom. It reminds you that sometimes the simplest foods are the most satisfying. From the communal warmth of commoners' meals, your senses are now drawn to the rhythmic, precise sounds emanating from specialized compounds within Benin City. This is where the renowned artisans at work quietly shaped the kingdom's artistic legacy, meticulously crafting the exquisite bronze and ivory pieces that define Benin's cultural heritage. Mainstream historical fact is that the Benin Kingdom was world-renowned for its sophisticated bronze casting, particularly the intricate plaques and commemorative heads created using the lost wax technique. These works were not merely decorative. They served as historical records, royal portraits, and visual narratives of the Abba's reign and the kingdom's achievements. You would hear the soft, rhythmic tapping of a sculptor shaping wax, the crackling of a nearby forge, and the focused silence of concentration as an artist poured molten bronze into a mold. Now for a quirky tidbit. The process of lost wax casting was incredibly complex and labor-intensive, often taking months to complete a single piece. It involved first sculpting a detailed wax model, covering it with layers of clay, melting out the wax, and then pouring molten metal into the resulting cavity. Imagine the tension as the molten bronze was poured, the anticipation as the mold cooled, and the painstaking work of chiseling and polishing the final masterpiece. It was a true labor of love, demanding immense skill and patience. It certainly makes you appreciate the smooth, cool surface of a finished bronze piece, doesn't it? Benin Bronzes were primarily due to strict artistic guilds and royal patronage, or if it also reflected a shared aesthetic and a continuous tradition passed down through generations. Was it centralized control or communal artistry? Regardless, the quiet dedication of these artisans created a lasting visual record of the kingdom's power and beauty. You would sense the profound focus in the workshops, the soft scraping of tools, and the almost meditative silence of creation. The artisan's work, with its meticulous craft and rhythmic precision, was a quiet testament to the enduring artistic soul of the Benin Kingdom, shaping its history in bronze and ivory, one careful stroke at a time, as the quiet hum of the artisans' workshops fades into the background. Your senses are drawn back to the palace, where the day's tempo shifts into a more measured rhythm. This is the afternoon palace pace, a time for administration, quiet counsel, and the subtle, ongoing governance of the kingdom, all centered around the Abba. A mainstream historical fact is that after the morning's ceremonial duties and perhaps a brief rest during the hottest part of the day, the Oba would often engage in more administrative tasks. This involved meeting with his various chiefs and palace societies, receiving reports, hearing petitions, and making decisions that affected the kingdom. These meetings were often held in designated courtyards or chambers, conducted with a quiet dignity and adherence to established protocol. You would hear the soft murmur of respectful debate, the rustle of official robes, and the occasional gentle strike of a gong signaling the end of a session. It was the administrative engine of the kingdom, operating with calm precision. Now, for a quirky tidbit, while the Abba's power was absolute, he governed through a complex hierarchy of palace chiefs and hereditary town chiefs. Decisions were often reached through a process of deliberation and consensus among these powerful figures, with the Oba having the final divine word. This meant that the afternoon discussions, though formal, were also vital forums for the exchange of information and advice. Imagine a group of venerable chiefs seated on low stools, carefully weighed. As the afternoon's administrative rhythms settle into a calm hum, your senses now anticipate the day's culinary pinnacle, the Abba's main meal. This midday feast was more than just sustenance. It was a grand performance, a meticulously curated display of power, wealth, and the kingdom's bounty, served with an unparalleled degree of ritual and reverence. A mainstream historical fact is that the Oba would typically partake in a lavish main meal around midday, a stark contrast to his simpler breakfast. This meal would feature a much wider variety of dishes prepared by his specialized culinary staff, showcasing the finest ingredients the kingdom could offer. While the core staples of yam and plantain would still be present, they would be accompanied by a richer selection of meats, including various types of bushmeat, fish, and perhaps domesticated fowl, all prepared in diverse stews and sauces. You would imagine the rich, complex aromas wafting from the serving chambers, the earthy scent of palm oil, the tang of fermented condiments, and the savory promise of slow-cooked meats. Now, for a quirky tidbit, the Abba did not eat directly from the serving dishes. Instead, each dish would be presented to him by a designated attendant, who would then serve a small portion onto a fresh, pristine plate or in a small, decorated bowl for the Abba to consume. This ritualistic serving not only emphasized his exalted status, but also likely served as a subtle form of food safety and verification, ensuring every dish was approved before it reached the divine ruler's lips. Imagine a line of attendants, each moving with choreographed precision, presenting their culinary offering, their movements as deliberate as a sacred dance. It sounds like a remarkably elaborate dining experience, doesn't it? Historians still argue whether the extreme formality and lavishness of the Abba's main meal was primarily a practical means of feeding his vast household and court, or if it was predominantly a symbolic spectacle designed to impress both his subjects and foreign visitors with his immense wealth and power. Regardless, the Oba's main meal was a central pillar of palace life. You would hear the soft, rustling sounds of attendants, the gentle clink of serving spoons against pottery, and the profound silence of reverence as the divine king partook of his meal. This feast was a silent, powerful testament to the Abba's dominion over his realm, a grand culinary tableau unfolding with quiet, majestic grace as the grand midday feast for the Oba concludes. Your thoughts linger on the profound role of cuisine in ancient Benin. It wasn't just about nutrition or even indulgence. It was about food as royal symbolism, where specific dishes, ingredients, and even the manner of their serving were meticulously chosen to reinforce the Abba's divine power, his connection to the ancestors, and his dominion over the kingdom. Manstream. Historical fact is that in many West African cultures, including Benin, food possessed deep symbolic meanings. Certain animals, plants, or preparations were associated with particular deities, spirits, or ancestral powers. For the Oba, his meals were carefully curated to reflect these associations, emphasizing his sacred lineage and his role as an intermediary between the human and spiritual worlds. For example, specific types of meat or certain vegetables might be served to evoke the strength of a warrior ancestor or the fertility of the land. You would understand that every morsel consumed by the Oba was not just sustenance, but a ritual act affirming his divine right to rule. Now, for a quirky tidbit, tea. Some dishes served to the Abba might have incorporated ingredients gathered from the very edges of the kingdom, or even rare items obtained through tribute or trade with distant lands. These exotic ingredients, while perhaps not forming the bulk of his diet, served as powerful symbols of the Abba's vast reach and the wealth he commanded. Imagine a rare, vibrantly colored fruit meticulously placed on his serving platter, hinting at the far-flung territories under his influence. It was a culinary map of his empire, wasn't it? Historians still argue whether the elaborate food symbolism surrounding the Abba was primarily a conscious strategy by the ruling elite to consolidate power, or if it genuinely reflected a deeply held societal belief in the spiritual power of food and its connection to the divine. Was it political theater or profound spiritual conviction? Regardless, the imperial kitchen was a vital component in this symbolic system. You would sense the profound significance of each dish, knowing that every flavor, every texture, every aroma contributed to a larger narrative of power and reverence. The royal meals of Benin were a silent yet potent language, constantly affirming the Abba's sacred and unchallengeable authority. It truly made every meal a masterclass in quiet culinary statecraft. As the long, warm day in Benin City slowly begins to wane, and the sun dips towards the horizon, your attention shifts from the formal rhythms of the palace to the more informal, yet equally vital, pulse of evening socializing. As dusk falls, the kingdom's people, from commoners to chiefs, would gather, transforming the quiet hum of daytime activity into a symphony of communal life. A mainstream historical fact is that evening was a crucial time for social bonding, community cohesion, and cultural transmission in traditional West African societies, including Benin. After the day's work was done, families and neighbors would gather in courtyards or communal spaces to share meals, exchange news, tell stories, and simply relax. These informal gatherings were essential for reinforcing social ties and passing down oral traditions. You would hear the gentle murmur of conversations, the soft laughter of children, and perhaps the distant, rhythmic beat of drums from a festive gathering, all blending into a comforting background hum. Now, for a quirky tidbit. Storytelling was a particularly important aspect of evening socializing. Elders and skilled griots, oral historians, and praise singers would captivate audiences with tales of ancestors, mythical heroes, moral fables, and historical events. These stories weren't just entertainment. They were vital lessons, vehicles for cultural values and ways to connect generations. Imagine sitting on a low stool in the soft twilight, listening to the resonant voice of a storyteller, his words painting vivid pictures in your mind, illuminated only by the flickering glow of a single oil lamp or a crackling fire. Sounds like the original podcast, doesn't it? Historians still argue whether the strong emphasis on oral tradition and communal storytelling was primarily a necessity in societies without widespread literacy, or if it was a deliberate cultural choice to foster community and a shared identity. Was it practical information transfer or profound artistic expression? Regardless, the evening hours in Benin were a time for quiet, profound connection. You would smell the lingering scent of cooking fires, feel the cooling evening breeze on your skin, and sensed the deep sense of belonging as the community settled into its nightly rhythm. These evening gatherings, with their shared stories and gentle camaraderie, were a quiet testament to the enduring human need for connection and shared narrative. As the gentle sounds of evening socializing begin to quiet, and the city settles into its slumber, your thoughts turn back to the Abba's palace, where the rhythm of vigilance never truly ceased. Even as the divine king rested, the nighttime palace guards ensured his safety, a silent, disciplined presence protecting the heart of the kingdom after dark. A mainstream historical fact is that the Abba's palace, as the center of power and the residence of a divine ruler, was heavily guarded at all times, with a dedicated corps of royal guards responsible for its security, especially during the night. These guards, often highly trained warriors, would maintain vigilant patrols, ensuring no unauthorized entry or threat to the Abba's safety. You would hear the soft, rhythmic footsteps of patrolling guards on the packed earth, the occasional faint clink of their ceremonial weapons, and the quiet commands exchanged between sentries. It was a constant, almost imperceptible hum of protection. Now, for a quirky tidbit to ensure their alertness and loyalty, some palace guards might have undergone specific rituals or received special training that emphasized their sacred duty to the Abba. Their vigilance wasn't just about military discipline. It was also imbued with spiritual significance, as protecting the divine king was paramount to the kingdom's well-being. Imagine a guard standing silently by a dimly lit courtyard, their senses acutely tuned to every rustle of leaves, every distant sound, knowing that the safety of the entire realm metaphorically rested on their watch. It certainly sounds like a weighty responsibility, doesn't it? Historians still argue whether the elaborate security measures around the Abba were primarily a response to genuine internal or external threats, or if they also served to reinforce the Abba's sacred and elevated status, distancing him from the common populace. Was it practical defense or symbolic? Regardless, the presence of these dedicated guards created a profound sense of security within the palace walls. You would feel the quiet reassurance of their constant watch, the subtle movements in the shadows, knowing that the Abba sleep, and thus the kingdom's peace was meticulously guarded. The nighttime palace guards performed a silent, essential duty, ensuring the continuity of the divine rule under the protective cloak of darkness. As the rhythmic footsteps of the palace guards echo through the quiet night, your thoughts turn to the Abba himself and the spiritual preparations that often accompanied his rest. For a divine king, even sleep was a sacred state, and the sacred sleep preparations were carefully observed to ensure his spirit's safety and his connection to the ancestral realm. A mainstream historical fact is that before the Abba retired for the night, specific rituals might be performed to purify his sleeping chambers and invite benevolent spiritual protection. This could involve burning certain incense, reciting quiet prayers, or placing protective amulets or symbols around his bed. The aim was to create a sacred space free from malevolent influences, allowing his spirit to travel safely in the dream world and return refreshed. You would imagine the faint, sweet scent of burning herbs, the low murmur of a priest's blessing, and the sense of a protective aura settling over the royal sleeping area. Now, for a quirky tidbit. Some accounts suggest that special palace attendants, often eunuchs, might have been responsible for performing these nightly purification rituals, ensuring every detail was meticulously observed. Their quiet, precise movements in the dimly lit chambers would be part of the calming bedtime routine for the Oba. Imagine these attendants moving silently, perhaps placing small, intricately carved wooden figures or pieces of coral, both sacred materials, around the bed, each imbued with protective power. It sounds like a deeply personal, yet profoundly spiritual bedtime story, doesn't it? Historians still argue whether the complexity of these royal sleep rituals was primarily a genuine spiritual practice, or if it also served to further emphasize the Abba's unique, almost untouchable status by surrounding him with constant, sacred protection. Was it true spiritual necessity or a clever demonstration of divine privilege? Regardless, the preparations ensured that the Abba's sleep was not just physical rest, but a continuation of his sacred duties. You would sense the profound stillness that descended upon the chambers, the deep sense of peace that accompanies a space purified and protected, allowing the divine king to drift into a profound slumber connected to the unseen world, his rest. A quiet anchor for the entire kingdom as the Ava settles into his sacred slumber, protected by ancient rituals and vigilant guards. Your mind expands to encompass the wider symphony of sounds of the night in Benin City. Unlike our modern world, often filled with artificial light and constant digital hum, the ancient Benin night offered a different, more natural, and ultimately calming soundscape. A mainstream historical fact is that pre-industrial cities, especially in tropical regions, had distinct nocturnal soundscapes dominated by natural phenomena and the subtle sounds of human habitation. The absence of widespread artificial lighting meant that sounds became more prominent after dark. You would hear the gentle chorus of crickets and other nocturnal insects, the distant hoot of an owl from the surrounding forests, or the soft croaking of frogs from nearby water sources. These were the natural lullabies of the West African night, a soothing, consistent backdrop to human sleep. Now for a quirky tidbit. beyond the natural world. Human sounds during the Benin night were often muted, rhythmic, and reassuring. You might hear the faint, distant beat of a ceremonial drum from a far-off compound, its rhythm carrying softly on the night air, or the gentle rustle of palm fronds in the breeze. Even the occasional call of a night watchman would be a deep, resonant sound rather than a jarring shout. Imagine lying on your mat, feeling the cool night air, listening to this gentle symphony, a distant drum, the whisper of leaves, the chirping of unseen creatures, all weaving together into a tapestry of natural sound. It sounds incredibly peaceful, doesn't it? Historians still argue whether the apparent calmness of ancient nocturnal soundscapes contributed to better sleep quality for the inhabitants, or if their relative lack of control over noise meant they simply adapted to it as a constant. Diggle. Was it inherently peaceful or simply unavoidable? Regardless, the night in Benin was a time for quiet, for reflection, and for the dominance of natural rhythms. You would feel the gentle ebb and flow of these sounds, allowing your own breath to synchronize with the soft cadence of the sleeping city. The sounds of the night in the Benin Kingdom provided a natural, ambient hum, a constant, gentle presence that lulled its inhabitants into a deep and restorative slumber. It was a symphony of sleep, composed by nature itself. As our deep dive into the daily rhythms and royal meals of the Benin Kingdom gently concludes, you're left with a profound appreciation for a rich and complex civilization. It's striking to consider how the echoes of their ancient ways still subtly resonate in modern West Africa, reminding us that history is a living, breathing continuity. A mainstream historical fact is that many cultural practices, artistic traditions, and social structures rooted in the ancient Benin Kingdom continue to thrive in various forms among the Edo people and other communities in present-day Nigeria. From the veneration of the Oba, who still holds a significant traditional role, to the artistry of bronze casting and the importance of yam in the diet, the past is not merely forgotten, but woven into the fabric of contemporary life. You might witness a modern ceremony among the Edo people, observing gestures or hear rhythms that directly connect to the ancient palace rituals we've explored tonight. Now, for a quirky tidbit, even the culinary practices we discussed, like the preparation of pounded yam, with rich, flavorful soups, remain beloved staples in modern Nigerian cuisine. While the ingredients might be more widely available and cooking methods more modernized, the essence of the dishes, the communal joy of sharing a meal, and the comforting flavors persist. Imagine a modern Nigerian family gathering for dinner, enjoying a meal that, in its fundamental ingredients, and spirit, directly links them to the commoners and even the Abba of ancient Benin. It's a delicious form of historical continuity, isn't it? Historians still argue whether the resilience of these traditional practices is a testament to the strength of cultural identity, or if they have adapted significantly over time in response to external influences and modern challenges. Is it pure preservation or dynamic evolution? Regardless, the rhythms of life in ancient Benin, from the sacred routines of the Abba to the bustling sounds of the marketplace and the quiet hum of the night, continue to resonate. You can now let the vibrant images of Benin City, the faint scent of wood smoke and palm oil, and the distant, rhythmic beat of ancient drums softly recede. The sounds of history fade into the comforting quiet of your own space. Feel the warmth of your covers, the gentle support beneath you. Release any lingering thoughts of royal meals or daily rituals. The day's history lesson is complete, and the night is here to hold you gently. Let your breathing slow, deep, and even, like the gentle lapping of waves on a distant shore. Imagine the softest moonlight filtering through your window, casting a silver glow, reassuring and calm. Allow your eyelids to grow heavy, a comforting weight, signaling the final surrender to rest. Drift away on that feeling, knowing that sleep is a gift and it is now yours to embrace. It's been quite a journey, hasn't it? From the vibrant markets of ancient Benin to the meticulous rituals of its divine Abba, we've explored a world rich in rhythm and cultural depth. You've imagined the sounds of daily life, the aromas of ancient kitchens, and the quiet dignity of a powerful kingdom. Now, as the last echoes of those ancient days fade, allow your own world to grow hushed. Let the gentle hum of your surroundings become a comforting background, a soft blanket for your thoughts. Feel the warmth of your covers, the gentle support beneath you. Release any lingering thoughts of royal meals or ancient rhythms. The day's work is done, and the night is here to hold you gently. Let your breathing slow, deep, and even, like the gentle lapping of waves on a distant shore. Imagine the softest moonlight filtering through your window, casting a silver glow, reassuring and calm. Allow your eyelids to grow heavy, a comforting weight, signaling the final surrender to rest. Drift away on that